Hey guys, and welcome to this week's video. We're talking about how cash could be ruining your business. Stay tuned. Let's get into it. So hey, thanks for joining this week's video. We're talking about the cash economy. And what we're sort of talking about is how the cash economy could be ruining your business. But first up, what is the cash economy? Well, basically what it is, it's whereby, businesses collect cash and they don't remit that cash into, their bank or declare that they received that cash. They may use that cash to operate, to pay for suppliers, and basically to pay staff and not remit tax on their wages, and basically, lure people to come in and work for them on a basis where they don't have to declare the money they earn. But I guess the premise of today's video is about, well, as much as this is really attractive to do, how is it holding back in your business? How is it holding you back to be the best business you can be? And so that's what we're talking about today. So we're going over a few different things today where we're going to talk about how cash is killing off your business and personal success, if I want to add that as well. So the first one I want to talk about is finance. And I'm going to sum this up really clearly. If you don't have the profit in your business, a bank isn't going to lend you the money because you're a much bigger risk to them. So if I was going to put in some really simple terms, if you're saying you earn $50,000 a year when really you probably earn more like $100,000, and you want to borrow, say, $1 million, well, I guess the reality is that the bank looks at and they go, well, based on your salary of $50,000, maybe we can only lend you $500,000, not $1 million. So it's going to hold you back things you want to do. But if we were to focus on your business, the big thing with a really low profit margin in your business, because you're not declaring the cash that you're receiving, is it's not giving a true and fair, reflection of where your business currently is today. So if we were to look at your business and for whatever reason you needed to finance a new car, a new piece of machinery, or whatever it might be to grow your business, where you need an injection of capital to get the business going and to buy that piece of equipment, the reality is one or two things are going to happen. The finance company, where a bank, wherever you go directly to a broker or you go direct to the bank, is just going to say, well, no, we can't help you. I'm sorry, we can't lend you that money to go and buy that piece of machinery. So that's just a straight dead end. So your business now can't do what it needs to do because it hasn't got the machinery in there or the equipment to carry out the task to make money. The second thing that could happen is, yep, you'll get the finance, but you won't be able to go to a first tier lender, so a top tier lender. So, and when we talk about that, we're talking about banks like ANZ, Commonwealth Bank, NAB, Westpac, St. George Bank. And those lenders, when you go there, they have competitive rates. The reality of what will happen is, sure, you can get the finance, but you're going to have to go to a bottom tier lender. So something like Liberty or RedZ. And what happens there is when you go to borrow money from those sort of lenders, is that the interest rate is a lot higher. So here you are in your business. You've not declared the cash that you're collecting because you're, concerned about having to pay extra tax and maybe the GST. But on the flip side is that now you can't grow your business because you're worrying about paying a little bit of tax. So we've got to and the whole point of this video is we start looking at the pros and cons. And you'll find that when we get to the end that there's a lot of cons towards not banking the cash in your business. The other thing as well when it comes to finance is personally for what you want to achieve for your personal circumstances. So if you want to get some money to finance for your house, whether that's a new purchase or an upgrade on your home property, you might find it really hard to get that finance. Because if we go back to what I just opened with, if you haven't got the money or you can't prove how much you earn, the bank isn't going to lend you the money. So what could possibly, a worst case scenario I think which actually does happen, is that it stops actually from you being able to make a purchase of a property, which means you don't get in the property market. And the next thing happens as well is that the property market continues to grow. And before you know it, you're priced out of the market where you can't afford to buy anything because you've got other commitments with family, and as things lead on. So, and you know, you can't really use the cash that you got on the side there because, you know, you never had it to start with. But all that could be alleviated if, I guess, that profit, that cash that you collected was banked into, and you were actually recording any of the sales. So there's two good reasons why you really want to get that cash and bank it, to record how much you're actually earning. So you know that when you go to the bank, you can confidently say, yep, this is what I have in my business, and the bank will say, hey, you've got a great business, because they're seeing the whole picture and they'll lend you the money. Okay, so the next part that I want to concentrate is on paying your staff with cash. Now, this is a major killer, and this is something that will just happen out of the blue that will really affect you. So, okay, typically what happens is you might have a business where you collect some cash and you say to your employee, hey, look, I'm going to pay you cash, an hourly rate with just cash, which means you're not recording them through, I guess, a typical sort of HR payroll scenario with your software and recording them as an employee. The next thing as well is you're not having to include them in your workers' compensation policy, and then also not having to pay their superannuation. As a side note, what is workers' compensation? Workers' compensation, also commonly known in, I guess, you know, with Australian slang, it's called workers' comp. So often we also call it workers' comp. But basically what it means is that if a staff member gets injured or hurt in the workplace, that they are covered for any medical bills, and then second of all, they're covered for any loss of wages. So that's how workers' comp works. But basically, the other thing as well is that you need to declare and tell the insurance. Usually it's iCare, is the insurance provider. They want to know how much you're earning, how much wages are, so they can, you know, properly give you an insurance premium for that cover. The other thing as well is that workers' comp is actually a compulsory insurance policy that you must have if you have employees. So that even means that if you're a director in your own business and you're running as a company and you're an employee of that business and you're paying yourself wages or director's fees, you need to include yourself in that workers' comp policy. But how is cash destroying your livelihood in your business? How is it going to destroy it when it comes to employees? Well, what I want you to think about is I want to give you a scenario. So, okay, so everything's been fine. We've been paying these employees cash, and I want to set the scene. We're in a hospitality environment, and we've got a few good waitresses and waiters who work after hours, and they've got a full-time job. And what's happened is, you know, everything's going fine, and one of your staff members falls over and breaks their leg. Which is quite likely it could actually happen. Slippery floor in a restaurant, and you know, a restaurant is actually quite a dangerous environment. Maybe not the most dangerous, but definitely a site or an employment site where basically you're more likely to be hurt than, say, for example, me sitting here in my office, where the worst case scenario is I might get a paper cut. But like, if we'll go back to the restaurant, an employee, they fall over, break their leg. Okay, so a broken leg is going to be, you know, you're going to be out for maybe 2 or 3 months whilst your leg heals. It takes quite some time. I don't know the exact time, but let's say it did take 3 months. Now, in this time, this person that you're employing as a waiter during the day might be a builder, and you know, without a working, functioning leg, it's going to be very hard to be on site on a building site. So what happens is the employee that you're paying cash goes down to their GP, and the GP says, well, hey, how did you incur this injury? And they say, oh, I hurt myself at my second job. And what happens there is, I guess, the doctor will fill in some forms, and they'll basically put through workers' compensation, through the workers' comp regime, that this person hurt themselves at the workplace. And so what happens is that the first thing is Medicare doesn't cover any of these costs either. So the repair of this employee and his leg to get back on his feet, literally speaking, horrible dad joke I know, is going to actually involve, I guess, the Medicare system won't pay for those fees. And what will happen is, I guess, the workers' comp iCare will go to the employer, and they'll say, hey, they'll find out, hey, there's no appropriate cover here for this employee. So what happens is that a few things. All of a sudden, now the employer is actually responsible for the loss of wages that this person's going to have, and then also to get themselves to cover all the fees for getting themselves back on track. So I guess all their medical bills. Now they might have a company, and in this scenario, what could happen is the company's null and void, because you've actually gone against your director responsibilities, that they can lift the corporate veil and they can make the directors personally liable for this employee's injuries. Which basically means, here you are, you've just put everything on the line for this employee, everything you've got in your own name outside the company, like your family home, and if you can't buy that, you potentially could become a bankrupt. But just on top of that as well, you're now having to cover all these, bills for the employee and the loss of wages. But then also, you're going to have a workers' comp, the people from workers' comp, so iCare, they're going to come back and have a look at your business operations. There possibly would be an audit. And also, they're going to backdate and ask you to pay for, insurance policy fees for all those other employees you hadn't covered. So all of a sudden you could be almost losing everything just because you were worried about paying a little bit of workers' comp to start with and a little bit of super for your employee. So that's why you need to pay your workers' comp policy, and you can't do that if you're paying your employees cash. The third one, selling your business and how cash is killing it. When selling your business, the purchase price of your business is going to be heavily determined on what is in the profit and loss and what's sitting on the balance sheet. Now, specifically speaking, if we look at the profit and loss, if the cash that you're collecting is not in there, when the accountant or the business broker goes to determine the price that the business would sell for, it's going to not reflect, what actually is happening in the business, because everything that you're doing, all the cash you're collecting, is not there in those financial statements. So cash could really kill off, getting that big ticket price tag that you want when it comes to selling your business. So typically what happens is when we look at valuing a business, whether it's an accountant or a business broker, if a business broker is doing an appraisal, they're going to go back around about 3 years and have a look at 3 years of profit, and they want to see some trends. Okay, if the business is a bigger business, and depending on the industry, it might even go further up to about 5 years. But the thing that you want to keep in mind is that people are only going to pay for what they see, and people can't see the cash that you're putting in your pocket, right? So that final price at the end is going to be so determined on what is there on that profit and loss. So for all those years, you've held that business and you've put a lot of work into it, working more than probably 12 to 15 hours a day, and the price you're going to get is not going to be reflective on all the hard work you've put in. And that's simply because it's not there in those financial statements, because the cash is sitting in your pockets. So to summarize, today's video, we talked about how cash is killing your business. We talked about 3 things. Finance. If the profit's not there in your profit and loss statement, the reality is the bank's not going to lend you money. The next thing we talked about was staff wages. If you're paying your staff cash, sure, you might be winning now, but if they hurt themselves in the workplace, you're going to be personally liable. And the third thing, which is the biggest out of all of them, is that if you've got a rotten tomato on paper, is anyone going to pay you the big price of what it's worth in your business if you're selling it? The reality is no. So for all your hard work, you won't get the money it's worth when it comes to selling. In addition to that, there's probably other things that we didn't really cover off. Probably a big one to sort of concentrate on as well is that the ATO, they have so many tools to work out whether someone is, I guess, dabbling in the cash economy and not declaring all their income. So you may be doing that today and be doing it very successfully, and you might have been doing it for a very long time. But the reality is today, if it's not today, if it's not next week or next month or next year, at some point the ATO will catch up with you, and the question is, are you going to be in the ATO's sights? Are they going to be coming down on you and actually getting you to, going through a tax audit? And what happens is when they go through a tax audit, they just don't look at the last 5 years. They can go back multiple years. And they could actually also get you to pay back all that tax that you didn't pay, the GST as well, plus with penalties and fines. And it could almost bankrupt you. And I'm sorry to say, but I've actually seen it happen, and it's not a pretty sight. So I know there's a little bit of negatives, but I want to take a positive spin on this. If you want to be successful and you want to be an industry leader, and the only way of seeing that is actually seeing what's actually happening. It's actually recording what's happening. So it means actually getting that cash and actually banking it. When we start doing that, we actually see what's happening in the business, and we start seeing some trends, and on that we can actually make improvements in your business. Now, everyone wants to cut down their tax. I know that. I'm not silly. Everyone knows that. The ATO knows that. But we can do it in legal ways where you can still, have everything over here as winning in your business, and then personally with your tax and all that, where we can cut it down legally. And there's many different ways we can do that, and I'm happy to share that with you. So, finishing up, if you like today's video, I hope you can share it with one of your friends or family, and also give us a thumbs up. Please leave a comment. Have you got any other thoughts? Are you running a business? Have you used cash before? Or better still, have you gone from using cash to actually declaring everything? What does it look like, and what's been the improvement for you and your business? If this video resonates with you and you want to talk more about it, please reach out to us at ngraccounting.com.au. Well, thanks for watching today, and we'll see you next week. See you guys.